Good afternoon and welcome to Seniors Count. I'm your host, Tula Mall. On our show, we believe that you are the foundation on which Boston was built. So our goal is to connect you to resources, benefits, and information to enhance your life. Thank you for joining us. Today, my guest is Joan E. Roover, the founder and CEO of A Thoughtful Move. She joins us with new ideas for those looking to downsize their home or manage household clutter. Welcome to the show, Joan.
Thanks, it's a pleasure to be here.
And we're so happy to have you.
Thank you.
So why don't we start by, tell us what prompted you to start A Thoughtful Move, and when was this, around what time?
Well, I had had a healthcare career as a social worker and a hospital administrator for many years, and I decided that I wanted to start my own business, and I found Move Management as a service that would really help seniors and other people who need to move make that transition, because moving is overwhelming for so many people, and especially for people of a certain age. The need to move sometimes becomes a safety issue. So this is a great use of my social work background to help people make the transition to a safer, more comfortable home.
Great. When do you think elders would benefit from starting to think about moving?
Before they need to. Very often people wait until they're really advanced in age and having physical or cognitive problems. So we encourage people to move while they still can be in charge of the decision and make all of the small decisions and choices that people need when making a move. So we encourage people to, by the age of 80, really think about now may be a good time to move.
But it would be different for different people for different reasons.
Absolutely.
Like if you had a huge house with a huge family and then now, you know, it's become a family of one. Or, I mean, so there's really not like an age that you would say, even though 80 is such an advanced age that more than likely.
Well, it's when the house is really too big. I have a whole list of rationalized reasons for people to move. When the house becomes too big and they find themselves living in 1 or 2 or 3 rooms, especially up here where it's so expensive to heat the house, where the physical maintenance of the house is just very costly and too exhausting to maintain. One key factor is whether or not people can still drive. If people are no longer able to drive or drive at night, then they begin to feel isolated and less involved in their community. And another big factor is when the neighborhood starts to change. I met a woman the other day who said she's lived in her neighborhood for 40 years, and she always felt comforted by her neighbors. But she said, I'm now the oldest person on the street, and everybody else has already left, and I don't know anybody. So now I've decided it's time for me to leave too.
So on the other spectrum, if someone wants to stay in their home, what do you offer services to help them make their home safer and more convenient to stay?
We do. There's a whole movement now called Aging in Place. And very often that means doing a bit of a safety assessment and being sure that area rugs are removed so that people can't trip on them. Very often the laundry may be in the basement, and going down those basement stairs is dangerous, so sometimes it involves bringing in a contractor and putting the laundry on an upper level of the house. Very often people can't get up to the second floor where the master bedroom may be located, So it may involve adding one of those chair steers, or just making things less cluttered in the home so that there's less risk of falling.
Okay. How do you suggest people begin the process of downsizing, or as you say, right-sizing? I saw that on your website.
Yes. We believe that life has its stages, and right-sizing is making those changes in your life for this stage of your life. So we encourage people to look around their house and engage where people have children, engage their children in the process, and invite their children to come home and visit and identify what things in the parental home the kids may want, or the grandchildren may want.
Yeah.
And very often people have basements and attics that are just full of stuff that has been left there for years. So while people still have the physical ability, it's a good idea to go into the basement or the attic, or sometimes people will go to the area that makes them stay up at night worrying and get that piece done.
Yeah.
But we suggest that people start small, one room at a time, and it's a great time to donate furniture or clothing that you're no longer using. I just went through my clothes closet last night and found 3 coats that I'm going to bring in and donate, because now's the time that people need winter coats.
Yeah. My grandfather he did that. So when we would visit him, he asked my dad, or he picked out things that he wanted one of us to have. And I thought it was so smart, because then he got to give us, and he got to see us enjoy these items.
We suggest that all the time.
Yeah.
People say, I want, and they'll leave notes that they want so-and-so to have something. And we'll suggest, why don't you give it to them now?
Yeah.
They'd so much more enjoy getting it from you now.
Yeah.
And it's just such a good thing when people can do that, and they can be thanked for it.
Yeah. We ended up taking pictures of the stuff in our house and then sending it to my grandfather so he could, because he wasn't going to be able to visit, he could see where it was and kind of get a sense of.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah, so that was great.
And we do the reverse. When we're in people's homes, we'll often send pictures to their adult children who live in other parts of the country and ask if they or their children want anything. So we'll create these photo albums.
Oh, nice.
And that's one way of involving the children and grandchildren who live out of state in the decision-making process.
Do you have any tools, or could you say okay, these are 6 items that you should have when you start planning this?
As a matter of fact, I do.
Oh, great. You came prepared.
I came prepared.
For that question.
Notebooks are very helpful because you should have a master notebook.
Okay.
Where you take notes, because it's so complicated and there's so many things to remember, that everybody should have a notebook and these fabulous
Post-it
sticky
notes. Yep.
Post-it notes.
Yep, love them.
In different colors.
Oh.
So that each child or grandchild has their own color.
Oh, what a great idea.
So if you know that your daughter, for instance, wants your china and old quilts, then you just have to put one of these super stickies on top of that item.
Yep.
And you'll know that that's where it's going. And then we also use colored tape.
Okay.
Colored tape can go on the boxes, so when you're if you're moving or you just want to store something, you keep a key of what room in the house may be coated with what colored tape.
Oh, what a great idea.
So the movers know that it's going into that bedroom.
Yep. Oh, that's such a good idea.
And then the other best invention is the Sharpie.
Yeah.
So that when you put a sticky, you either put the person's name or you put their initial. These stickers can also be used when you're going through the house. You identify things that you want to keep, things that you want to donate, or things that, as I put it, need to be permanently retired.
I like that.
Rather than trash,
Yes.
we're retiring things. So I always suggest that people use a Sharpie to reinforce what they're thinking of the label for, because we all forget.
Yeah.
And having it in writing makes
Helps,
it
yep.
easier.
I could see this being a fun activity or game, like if you have your family members come over, and then you can kind of go through things together, and there could be storytelling that's involved about the item, and oh, Grandma or Grandpa, I've never seen this. Tell me about it. And
exactly.
there could be a lot of interaction that way.
It's a great opportunity to share family history and to create a legacy. And what we find in a lot of people's homes, when we turn over a plate or something, there'll be a little note that this was a gift from, and what year it was gifted. And children appreciate knowing the history. Even though they may not want the piece, they appreciate knowing the history.
Yeah. So then on the other hand, this may also be very hard for people to do, because these are their items, the things that they've known and cherished their whole life. How do you recommend people deal with that, or how reasonable is it for people to do this on their own? Or
everybody's different.
Yep.
Most people want the opportunity to make the selection of what they're going to move with them. I was with a mother and daughter today where she's in a very large house and moving to a much smaller senior living community. So she understands that not only does she have to give up a lot of her things, but she's leaving the community that she's loved for a very long time. So that is, as she put it, it's wrenching.
Oh.
But to have help, her daughter from out of town, and my company is helping her to make the selections of what means home to her. What are the most emotionally connected pieces that she has? And those are the things that we try very hard to fit into their new home.
How long does it take for you to move someone? Or can you talk a little bit about the process so people get an idea of the length of time that takes, hours, days, or planning?
It all depends.
Okay.
It depends on how large a space they're moving out of, and most importantly, how large a space they're moving into, because that determines how much they can bring. But even when they're moving to a very small senior living community, everything in the house needs to be dealt with. Because whether it's a rental apartment or a large home, you have to turn it over to its new residents empty.
Yep, yeah.
So, but very often we've done it in as short as a weekend.
Wow.
When it's an emergency situation and there's a safety risk, and we've had to go in, pack people up very quickly. The moving truck comes and we set up their new home the next day.
Wow. So,
but other than that, it sometimes can take months.
Okay, yeah. Like a weekend seems
That's
very
unusual.
Yes, very dramatic.
Yeah.
So just so I understand, so you help people decide what's staying, what's going, what's being donated, and then not only that, pack it up, but then when they get to their new home, everything's set
Unpacked. We offer an unpacking and settling in service that most people appreciate.
Yeah.
And we unpack, put everything away, set up the closets, the bathrooms, the kitchen, make the bed, and people can sleep in their new home that night.
Do you guys have tips or thoughts on the way that you do this so that it's because obviously everyone's kitchen's different, right? You go into my kitchen and it's set up different than someone else's. So do you guys follow some sort of guide that's out there about what's the best way to set things so people can, that's, I guess, rational? I don't, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, okay. I do. And it's a very good question because it differs, particularly when you're dealing with older people. Some people have a very hard time bending down to the lower cabinets.
Yeah.
Some people either have height restrictions or mobility restrictions in their shoulders, so they can't reach up.
Yep, cabinets.
So that's one of the first questions we ask. Is it easier for you to bend down or to reach? and then we set up the kitchen accordingly. So the things that are used most often on an everyday basis are at the lowest level or the highest level in the case of under the counter, and easily accessible. And everybody tends to bring too much stuff and bring things that they may never use. So those are the things that we put up the highest.
Okay.
But we encourage people, when they're moving to a smaller space, to be practical, bring only what they love and will use.
Okay. So I know that you guys are a member of Boston Senior Care Alliance. Can you tell us what that is and why that's important that your company's part of that?
Well, it's a great organization that includes, we created it to include all of the services that adult children who are concerned about their aging parents or seniors themselves might need in the process of aging. So not only is my company a member, but we have a geriatric care manager. We have two, actually, Bob O'Toole and Audrey Zabin. We have two of the strongest elder care attorneys, Margolis and Bloom law firm based in Boston, and Bill Brisk based in Newton. We have a home adaptation construction company. It's a great depth of resources and services.
And so you consult with them on, there's this house, this woman that needs to move to this other house on, whatever needs to happen. Because one of the things I was thinking about is who sets up grab bars? Is that part of what you guys do, or whatever needs to be done in this new setup? Is that
when we're servicing a client, we'll help them think through all of the things that they're going to need to be safe and comfortable in their new home. So we have, as I put it, I have a guy for everything.
Yeah.
And the Boston Senior Care Alliance allows us to cross-refer and be able to refer clients to trusted advisors that we feel good about working with in a collaborative manner.
I was going to ask you that. Do you also not only consult with them about specific, families and situations, but do you also refer to them?
Yes.
Or refer them to the clients to them about if
Exactly.
they're looking for whatever the needs are?
Yes.
And so this is I guess an organization, or I don't know what it's called, but that you and this group set up together. It wasn't, the alliance wasn't already there and you joined it.
No, we created it. And people are only in it by invitation.
Oh.
So it is a select group of people that provide needed services in a good, cost-effective, ethical, with integrity manner.
Oh, so interesting. So let's talk about if someone's thinking about moving from their home to a senior living community, what should they be aware of?
Well, they need to think about bringing in real estate brokers and getting a sense of the value of their home. And I always suggest that people meet with at least 2 real estate brokers to get a realistic assessment of the value of their home. And then they need to go and visit senior living communities so that, because each community has the physical appearance, but it also has its own soul and culture.
Culture, yeah, I can imagine.
And you need to feel comfortable with the type of organization it is and who your neighbors are going to be in the community. I'm a big proponent of people moving to senior living communities rather than staying home alone, particularly after a certain age where getting out is harder and they may no longer be able to drive, because it affords great intellectual stimulation and provides resources and services, sometimes a gym or a swimming pool. There's a lot of benefits to being in a senior living community.
So you've been in this business for about, 6 years, I think you said earlier?
8 years.
8 years. Can you give us, obviously without divulging too much information, a story like of one of your most memorable situation that you remember that you can share with us? I'm sure there's plenty.
We have a lot of great stories. One was a most touching move for me recently, where the family moved up their mother, who had been a Holocaust survivor. And this woman had lost her entire immediate family in the camps. And she met her husband actually in the camp. And they later married. And the son brought her up to Massachusetts from Florida so they could be closer. And everybody touches your soul. But this particular woman, as we were unpacking and putting everything away, we found her childhood pictures of her deceased family. And she never wanted to talk about the camp experience. She always talked about how lucky she was and how happy her family made her. And for us, she was the epitome of resilience and taught us a lot. And when she opened the door and walked into her new apartment with all new furniture and everything that was important to her, her family pictures and her heirloom pieces from Germany, she just started to sob and talked about how lucky she was.
That's so amazing. And
we were all standing in tears and hugging her. It was just a unique experience.
Yeah. So in dealing with, you know, you're working one-on-one with individuals, with a team, you must get pretty close to some of these clients, especially if they're longer term relationships. Do you keep in touch with these people afterwards, or does it all depend? And can you talk a little bit about that?
And very often we've had clients that we've moved 4 and 5 times.
Wow.
You know, we might move them out of their larger home, and then they go to an apartment, and they may live in the apartment for 4, 5, or 10 years. And then when that gets too much for them to manage, we move them to a senior living community, to assisted living. And then we may have to dismantle that apartment, as they may have to go to a nursing home.
Wow.
So we do get very close to the family and the children. And all of us have our own people that are particularly close. And we keep in touch, and I email. Somebody just sent me a photograph of the parents with their great-grandchild, and we had moved the couple out to Denver from Massachusetts to be closer to their 2 children out there, and they sent me a picture of her parents with their great-grandchild and seeing her for the first time.
Wow, that's really amazing.
So it's a great field.
It's such good work you're doing.
It is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you can believe, we're pretty much out of time. So is there any last thought you want to leave our audience with, or maybe your website?
My website is www.athoughtfulmove.com. And I encourage people to recognize that it's important to be safe and comfortable and secure in their home, and that moving, whether you use a service like ours or do it on your own, is possible, and it's a good thing to do.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Seniors Count, brought to you by Mayor Martin J. Walsh and our Commissioner Emily Shea. To contact us, please call 617-635-4366 or the Mayor's 24-hour hotline at 617-635-4500. You can also email us at elderly@cityofboston.gov, and you can find us on Facebook. Have a great afternoon.
I see skies of blue and clouds of white, bright blessed days, dark sacred nights, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.